everybody, welcome back to the Teach Back method, where I teach you guys something that I'm learning about in grad school to help me learn it better. So we are sticking with our ascending track, and for this video we're going to be talking about our dorsal spinal cerebellar tract. Let's get into it. Before I draw the track up here and start explaining it, I am going to explain the template because it is slightly different than my previous videos. So we are still talking about an ascending tract, but since we're talking about cerebellar hemispheres, we have some additions and subtractions. So up here in the cortex, we can see it's a lot less detailed because the tract never enters the cortex, so we don't need to talk about it. We still have our midbrain, pons, medulla, and spinal cord, and just keep in mind the levels of our spinal cord. So cervical will be higher up, thoracic, lumbosacral. For this template, we have added our cerebellar hemisphere, so keep in mind this is a coronal cross-section of the brain and brainstem. Okay, so I went ahead and drew our tract up here. So this is the dorsal spinal cerebellar tract, and this tract carries unconscious proprioceptive information from the trunk and lower extremities. So with that being said, I am going to go ahead and apologize about my drawing. Honestly, these cell bodies of the second order neurons should have been placed lower because keeping in mind the spinal cord, the level cervical, thoracic, lumbosacral. So we're just going to say that the spinal cord picture is relative with no fixed axis. So with that being said, the dorsal spinal cerebellar tract is a two-order neuron chain. So our first chain is here, and our second chain is here. So when we look at our first order neuron chain, our information comes from the periphery. The cell body is in the dorsal root ganglion, and it enters at medial division fibers, and then it synapses in Clark's nucleus, or intermediate gray. Our second order neuron cell body is in that same location as the previous synapse. So Clark's nucleus, it ascends all the way up, and it enters the cerebellum via the inferior cerebellar peduncles. And then it goes into our anterior lobe and posterior lobe and synapses in those locations. In my previous videos, we did talk about other ascending tracts and how they cross to the other side and how lesions can affect either the ipsilateral side or contralateral side. So looking at this real quick, we can see that there's no crossing happening. So I have this dotted line down the middle to really help us visualize whether the tract crosses or not. So with the dorsal spinal cerebellar tract, it does not cross to the other side, meaning if there is a lesion of the first order neuron or the second order neuron in any of these locations, only the ipsilateral side is going to be affected.